everyone, my name is Anya, and in this video we're going to take a look at what happened on this day in the year 1993 and the events that followed. This is an event that happened 30 years ago, and it has gone down in history as one of the most horrific and senseless murders to take place in the United Kingdom. It's a case where a little child was brutally murdered, and those who were convicted were only children themselves. For me, this is a case where appearances can be deceiving, and sometimes we must be reminded that evil can be found in the most unlikely of places. So for this video, we are going to take a look at the abduction and the murder of James Bulger. James Patrick Bulger was born on the 16th of March 1990 in Merseyside, England, the firstborn child of Ralph and Denise. By all accounts, he was a normal, happy little 2-year-old boy. He was adored by his parents and family, he loved to have fun, and he was looking forward to starting in preschool. On this day, the 12th of February 1993, James and his mother Denise visited the New Strand shopping centre in Bootle, Liverpool. While visiting a butcher shop, Denise let go of her son's hand for a moment so she could pay for her shopping. But that moment was all it took for little James to be lured away from his mother. When Denise went to pick up her son again, James was gone. As any mother would, Denise went into panic mode. She searched frantically around the shopping centre trying to find her son and begged security for help. The security surveyed the footage to see if they could find any trace as to where James had gone. To their horror, security footage showed James being lured away from his mother and out of the shopping centre altogether by 2 youths. Immediately, police were contacted and began a nationwide search to try and find the little boy. Two days after he was reported missing, the body of 2-year-old James Bulger was found on a railway track just 2 miles away from the shopping centre. It is really difficult to go into detail as to what this little boy suffered. All I can say is that he was beaten severely and left to be hit by a train. The pathologist stated that little James had suffered 42 injuries in total, so many that it could not be determined how many it took for him to die. The only mercy that this little boy was given was that he was already dead by the time the train came. That is the only mercy that he was granted.
A final journey for James Bulger, his infant coffin surrounded by flowers in his memory. Hundreds of people looked on as his father and uncles bore him into the local family church. His life was not lost in vain, they were told, for other children are now benefiting from the generosity shown after his death. Every element of the funeral mass had been selected by his parents, Ralph and Denise. The cameras admitted with them. The Eric Clapton song, Tears in Heaven, written after the death of his own son, was the final musical tribute to James, before a private burial service near to the family's home. Among the flowers, a poem from his distraught parents. We didn't get to say goodbye, and that really makes us cry. You brought so much love in our lives, that love for you will never die. The only thing that we can do is sit and pray for you. In our hearts you'll still be there, locked inside our loving care. God look after you as we would do, because we know that he is with you.
After the discovery of James's body, the police were more determined than ever to identify the two youths who had lured James out of the shopping centre entirely. They released this enhanced image from the security footage in the hopes that somebody might be able to identify the youths, and thankfully somebody did. A woman came forward saying that she recognised one of the boys in the image and had remembered seeing the two youths around the Bootle area the day that James was abducted. She immediately contacted the police. She gave the names of the two youths and they were arrested. Though police initially believed that they were dealing with two teenagers from viewing the security footage, they were horrified to instead discover that they were dealing with two boys who were 10 years old. 10 years old and capable of murder. Although their identities could not be released to the public at the time due to their age, it was after their conviction that the two boys were publicly identified as Robert Thompson and John Venables. These are the boys who abducted and murdered 2-year-old James Bulger. From interviews with the police, Venables and Thompson would go on to say that they had bunked off school on the 12th of February 1993. They were hanging around the New Strand shopping centre, stealing various items from shops, including batteries, a troll doll, and a can of blue spray paint. They would go on to say that after spotting James with his mother, they lured him away and took him out of the shopping centre, bringing him to the railway track where they murdered him. Again, I'm not going to go into full details as to what they did to little James because it's far too upsetting. All I can say is that they beat him severely, sprayed paint into his eyes, and left him to be hit by a train. And like I said, the only mercy that they granted him was that by the time the train did come, James was already dead. The fact that two 10-year-old boys were capable of a brutal and horrific murder to a little toddler was just unbelievable.
Did you ever see him in the Strand? You shook your head again.
Yeah.
Bobby, was that on the day that we're talking about? Was that on this Friday? Yes.
Yeah. We were going up the escalators, they were coming through the doors that there's loads of.
Who was he with?
No.
Little James.
His mum.
With his mum. He was just running around, was he, James?
Yeah.
Will you tell me exactly what, slowly, right?
He was just like coming here, and then he grabbed his hands and walked up the stand. He took him around so and started throwing bricks at him. I didn't throw any bricks because Robert said pick a brick up and throw it. I just threw it on the floor.
What was Robert saying while he was doing all this?
He was saying stay down, you stupid dick, and all that.
Why did he want him to stay down?
Don't know. Wanted him dead, probably.
Where did the stones in the bar hit him?
In the head.
And you said the bar knocked him out?
Yeah. Onto the railway track.
And what happened then?
No, he was just lying there. Just finished now because I can't speak anymore.
The clothing of Thompson and Venables was also examined, and James's DNA was found on their clothing as well as blood and blue paint on their shoes. This was enough for investigators to conclude that Robert Thompson and John Venables were responsible for the murder of James Bulger, and they were charged with murder. The question as to who killed James Bulger had been solved. but the question as to why they had done it, that is still under debate. Some have said that Venables and Thompson both came from dysfunctional families. Others have said that they were influenced by pop culture and horror movies, in particular the horror movie Child's Play 3, which features the infamous killer doll Chucky on a murderous rampage. Others have speculated that they were simply born bad, that they were born to kill. On the 24th of November 1993, Robert Thompson and John Venables were found guilty of the abduction and murder of James Bulger. They were sentenced to be incarcerated in detention with a minimum term of 8 years in prison. There was a lot of debate in the years after the trial as to whether Robert Thompson and John Venables should serve the rest of their lives behind bars. Many felt that 8 years in detention was not enough for them to fully understand the horrificness of what they had done. Some said they should spend at least 20 to 30 years in prison. James's parents, Ralph and Denise, were both determined to make sure that their son's killers spend the rest of their lives behind bars. There were plenty of protests, petitions, and appeals in relation to the sentencing of the two boys. But in 2001, despite the anger and the outcry from the public, both Robert Thompson and John Venables were given new identities and released from custody. There are no words to describe the anger in relation to this.
James Bulger's mother, Denise Fergus, said she was shocked and disgusted by the decision. It means her son's killers could be out in a matter of months. A friend gave this emotional statement on her behalf.
They have got away with murder, and the lawyers and judges are bending over backwards to look after their interests. The whole case has turned into a ridiculous legal charade.
Lord Wolfe has decided the tariff should expire today. He says the boys, both 18, are genuinely remorseful and further detention wouldn't be constructive.
It was a terrible offence, but they were only children. They were only just criminally responsible when it occurred, and it has to take into account the undoubted progress which they've made.
There has been a lot of speculation as to whether Robert Thompson and John Venables should have been given a second chance in society. Many have said that they should have remained in prison for the rest of their lives. I actually wasn't able to find out much about what happened to Robert Thompson after his release from prison. His new identity is unknown, his current whereabouts are unknown, but from what I can tell is that he seems to have stayed out of trouble and has not committed any offences since his release from prison. John Venables, on the other hand, is an entirely different story. Since 2010, John Venables has been in and out of prison for possession and distribution of child pornography, possession of cocaine, and possession and distribution of child abuse imagery, which is just absolutely disgusting. The question as to whether Thompson and Venables should have been released came under scrutiny when it was revealed that the British government had spent £65,000 on the new identity of John Venables. You heard me right, £65,000. If that does not scream ridiculous, I do not know what does. As of right now, John Venables remains in prison, but he is scheduled for a parole hearing in the coming months. James Bulger's parents, Ralph and Denise, who have since divorced, both agreed that their son's killer should have remained in prison and they should have never been released. They are both currently fighting to make sure that John Venables remains in prison and his parole is denied. 30 years have passed since the murder of James Bulger, and even now today, people still can't believe how two 10-year-old boys could be capable of such a horrific and brutal murder. For me, this shows that pure evil can be found in the most innocent faces. You look at the images of these two boys, and if you didn't know what they did, you wouldn't believe that they would be capable of murder. Both of James's parents, Ralph and Denise, have done their best to ensure that the memory of their son remains alive today. They are determined to make sure that their little boy is remembered for the happy, fun-loving little child that he was. May James Patrick Bulger rest in eternal peace. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, because personally, this was the most difficult topic that I've had to cover up to now. The most difficult I've had to cover. There will be more videos released in the upcoming weeks, with my next video taking a look at an event that started off so brilliantly but ended so tragically, leaving a lot of people physically and emotionally scarred. Until the next time though, my name is Anya, and we have just looked at what happened on this day.